Welcome to the New England Patriots pregame show for preseason week 3 against the Detroit Lions. You're listening to CLNS Media, a leading online provider of audio-visual coverage for the New England Patriots. Alex Barth back with you again for week 3 of the New England Patriots preseason. We were off last week against the Houston Texans. So we'll recap that game, take a look at what's going on in about an hour in Detroit between the Patriots and the Lions. This is, as people call it, the dress rehearsal game, as close as we're going to get to regular season football until the official season opener. Expect a lot of the starters to play tonight. We're still waiting on those lists. But overall, this is going to be our best chance to get an idea of what this offense, because we kind of know the defense, not much has changed, but what this offense is going to look like heading into the 2017 season. Before we get started here, just a reminder, the CLNS New England Patriots pregame show is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Every employer knows that a crucial part of any successful business is hiring the right employees. But posting your job in one place is not enough to find quality candidates. If you want to find the perfect hire, you need to post your job on all the top job sites, and now you can. With ZipRecruiter, you can jumpstart your hiring in 2017, post your job to 200-plus job sites, including the social media networks like Facebook and Twitter, all with a single click. Find candidates in any city or industry nationwide. Just post once and watch the qualified candidates roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. No juggling emails or calls to your office. Quickly screen candidates, rate them, and hire the right person fast. Find out why ZipRecruiter has been used by over 1 million businesses. And right now, listeners to this podcast can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/sportsfan. Not a promo code, up in the search bar at the top, ZipRecruiter.com/sportsfan. One more time to try it for free, go to ZipRecruiter.com/sportsfan. So tonight, the dress rehearsal preseason game, game 3 in Detroit for the Patriots. It's kind of been weird, their schedule this preseason. The least 2 impactful games are the home ones, and you obviously would like game 3 to be at home because you're going to go through your home critiques, or your home routine, at least 8 times. On the road once. You know, if you play the Jets and the Giants, you'll play in the same stadium twice. If you play both those teams on the road, that's not the case, I believe, for anybody this year. But yeah, 1-4 at home. Season ticket holders obviously weren't happy about that because game 1, you're going to see a lot of the fringe roster guys, the guys who have impressed early on in camp. You want to see how they do in game action. In game 4, I mean, you won't see anybody. The majority of people who are going to play in game 4 aren't going to make the team. I'd expect this is the last we will see. Basically, anybody who starts tonight, I would not expect to play next week at home against the Giants. So, Patriots will have to figure that out on the road, but they do get that pregame feel. It's going to feel like a regular season game before the game. They've been doing a little bit of game planning this week. This has really been, it's a dry run for the regular season. Now, that being said, something that's a little concerning to me, something to keep an eye on tonight, first thing to keep an eye on tonight, is that Nate Solder did not travel with the team to Detroit. He will not play tonight. And that's Tom Brady's blindside protector. That's the Patriots starting left tackle. Up until the Super Bowl, one of the best left tackles in football last year. Really had a renaissance of a season. But they're going to keep him out of this game, keep him fresh. So Tom Brady's going to be going up against a pretty good pass rush. You got Ziggy Ansah and co. in Detroit. And he's not going to have his usual blindside protector. Now, will it be Waddle? Will they move Cannon over? Will it be one of the rookies? Will it be somebody else? We'll see. But I wonder if that affects how much Tom Brady plays in this game. The one thing I want to see tonight, my biggest analysis taking away is going to be whatever it ends up being, the chemistry Brady and Cooks have. We know his chemistry with the rest of the offense. Cooks is the question mark, but if he has it down with Brandon Cooks, it's going to go a long way. I talked about this 2 weeks ago. I talked about it on Patriots Beat with Mike a few weeks ago as well. The potential Brandon Cooks has in this offense is outstanding, but him and Brady need to be on the same page. That was the problem with Chad Ochocinco. Now, Cooks, much better player. Don't want to compare the two, but Ochocinco and Brady never really got on the same page. Okay, Ochocinco never really grasped the concept of the Earnhardt Perkins offense that the Patriots run. Cooks, from all reports, he's fitting in. Brady likes him. But outside of, a little bit of time together on the field last week, we haven't really seen anything. So that's the thing to watch tonight. And hopefully Brady can stay upright. I would guess if whoever's at left tackle, if Brady starts getting hit, he's going to come out of this game very, very quickly. So that's the first point to watch tonight. Again, this is Alex Barth. You are listening to the CLNS Patriots pregame show. If you have any questions, you can tweet at us at CLNS Media, at Patriots Beat is our specific Patriots account. You can also tweet at me at TheRealAlexB. And next week, we'll take your questions on the show, and hopefully that's something we'll be doing throughout the season. We should be live for the season opener 2 weeks from yesterday, I believe it is, 2 or 3 weeks from yesterday. I'm so bad with that, the weeks and... Yeah, 2 weeks. Okay, 2 weeks from yesterday. Yep. Hopefully we'll be live for that, and we can take your questions and comments. But until then, if you have a question before the show, tweet at me. We'll go through a couple of them a little later on in this one. Again, getting you ready for the Patriots and the Lions taking place in Detroit tonight. Let's actually go to one of those questions now. This one comes from Becca on social media. Becca, and this is again about the offense. How much should we be paying attention to Jimmy during the preseason and the likelihood of Tom and Gronk making it to the postseason? So, Becca, I'm going to knock on some wood first. Tough question. You have to ask it. Brady, I'm not too worried about. Again, I'm going to knock on wood. I don't want to have to talk about this, but he has a history of durability. He's pliable. We know how much they love that word. I do want to talk about Rob Gronkowski, though, because he will play tonight. I would expect, again, it's the last time we see him. And I was very surprised to see him in that preseason game last week. He hadn't played in the preseason in about 4 or 5 years. And now suddenly he's on that Alex Guerrero kick. He thinks he can be healthier. He just signed that new contract. But they're a different team with him on the field. Can they win without him? Yeah, they did it last year. But they're a different team with him on the field. They go from the best offense in the league to a generational offense when you put Rob Gronkowski on the field with Tom Brady. I think I like the chances of him playing a little deeper into the season this year because I don't think they're going to put him in the same spots he was put in last year. I don't think they run him inside the numbers as much. I don't think they run him down the field against 2 high safeties as much. They're going to limit those chances for safeties to get free hits at him. Those were the 2 hits that did him in last year. He was running up the seam inside the numbers, and he took a shot from Cam Chancellor, and I can't remember the safety on the Jets who hit him, who ultimately did him in. But it was those 2 hits really, at least from what we could tell, and who knows what's going on behind the scenes, but it seemed to be those 2 hits that got to him. So for him to play in the postseason, hopefully, they'll scale his roll back a little much. Now, the tough part about that, you don't have Martellus Bennett anymore. Dwayne Allen's okay. He's pretty good. He's more of a blocking tight end. He's not Martellus Bennett. And he's certainly not Rob Gronkowski. And that's why the third tight end battle is so important. Because the way the Patriots depth chart is going to work, it's less of the third tight end, it's Rob Gronkowski's backup. It's 2 different tight end positions that the Patriots use. And Rob Gronkowski has his route tree and his responsibilities, and Dwayne Allen is his. If something happens to Gronk, you're probably not going to see Dwayne Allen have the same responsibilities Gronk had, because they're different players. So in that third tight end spot, sometimes it'll be a blocking tight end, sometimes it'll be a receiving tight end. Bill does it different. Remember a couple years ago, Michael Williams converted left tackle. But I think this year, it seems like they want to keep an extra lineman. That can be your backup blocking tight end. I really want to see them have a pass-catching tight end in that spot. Now, Jacob Hollister, huge first preseason game. Didn't see too much from him last week. We still have James O'Shaughnessy out there. Obviously, Matt Langle the Bengal, caught the touchdown pass from Brady last season, but he's more of a blocker. And then Sam Cotton as well. So we continue to watch that develop. I was a little surprised they didn't feed Hollister more last week. I thought Bill was going to want to get more evaluation from him. Tonight's going to be a big game for whoever replaces Gronk, because I don't think Gronk will play as much as the rest of the starting offense, given his health history. So whoever fills into that role, my guess would be, is the leader in the clubhouse right now for that third tight end spot. And I don't think they're not going to put 4 tight ends on this roster. Maybe somebody gets to the practice squad, but they're not going to put 4 tight ends on this roster. So keeping an eye on what happens there is going to be important, because that's going to be an important player. Because whether Gronk plays in the playoffs or not, his snap totals will probably be a little down this year in terms of percentage of snaps played per game. Hopefully overall that means there's more snaps because he plays in more games. That's ultimately the plan. But I talked about this on Patriots Beat with Mike a couple weeks ago. There's no reason to be running him in between the numbers. You know, in the red zone, just keep him in the end zone. Just run him to the end zone where he's not going to get tackled. As soon as you get up, you know, they're going to be up 21, 24 points at times early in games this season. There's no reason for him to stay in that game. But game's not over. You still need somebody in that role, and that's why I'm so interested in the third tight end spot. Again, this is the Patriots preseason pregame show for preseason Game 3 against the Detroit Lions. I am Alex Barth. This is brought to you by CLNS Media, a leading online provider of audiovisual coverage for the New England Patriots. If you have any questions for us you want answered on next week's show, because unfortunately we're not live yet, we're getting there, tweet them at us at CLNS Media, at Patriot Beat, or at The Real Alex B. There's underscores between all of it because I made it in middle school. It's a horrible handle. I'm working on changing it. It's Alex Barth if you want to search it. The picture is me golfing, if that makes it any easier. But if you have any questions you want us to talk about, next week will probably be more of a season preview kind of show. Not going to do too much to break down preseason Game 4. Just because, you know, there'll be a couple bubble guys I want to talk about, but probably not too much. The most notable thing that's ever happened in preseason Game 4 for me is when John Lynch decided mid-game he was going to retire after Belichick played him the whole game, and that's just a fun story. So last week, I was in San Francisco, actually. I was at a family event, and I get a text. We were out to dinner during the game because of the time change, and I get a text that a friend of mine was upset that that call late in the game about the inbounds call, and saying, oh, I needed that tonight. I needed them to win. You know, that was such a bad call. I just want to remind everybody what's at stake here tonight. They're 0-2, and that's okay. In my mind, the Patriots are 2-0 in the preseason because they have done what every team ultimately wants to do in the preseason. Player evaluation is important. Getting your routine down, chemistry down between the coaches and the players with each other, always good. Sure, win's nice. It's cool. But the ultimate preseason goal is to stay healthy. And so far, the Patriots have done that. Landon Roberts went down last night. By all intents and purposes, he's okay. Dietrich Wise suffered a concussion in the first game. He's back at practice. We'll see if he plays tonight, how much he plays tonight. Although it sounds like he didn't really miss a step, missing a week, which is a good sign. Obviously, we hope he's a concussion. Always want to be careful, but the fact he can get right back to it leads me to believe, especially in the preseason, it was a very minor concussion and that he'll be all right. The only real standout injury to this point is Derek Rivers, who I've been raving about since before they picked him. And unfortunately, it sounds like he's going to be out for the season with a bad knee injury, so we'll have to wait till next year to see him. That leaves the Patriots with just 3 draft picks left on this roster. And they have plenty of UDFAs, but just 3 draft picks left on the roster. Interesting situation for the Patriots. But just everybody remember, whatever the score is tonight, just no injuries. That's the plan. Everybody stays upright. Everybody who walks on the field, walks off the field. That's what we're looking for tonight from the New England Patriots. Let's take another look at a question submitted by somebody online right now. This comes from Jonah, and this kind of goes what I was talking about before with the tight ends. Jonah wants to know which receivers will make the cut, specifically Austin Carr. So the cog in this, in the receivers, is the health of Malcolm Mitchell, and that's the question mark. That's what's kind of holding everything up. Is he going to be on PUP to start the year? Is he going to be ready to go? Do they not want him on PUP, but he can't play week 1? That's the question. We'll see if and how much he plays tonight. But so far throughout the preseason, everything's really coming up Brandon Cooks. Look, the guys we can be pretty sure, it's Belichick, but the guys we can be pretty sure are going to make the team are Amendola, Edelman, Hogan, and Mitchell, the guys who were on the team last year, plus Brandon Cooks, and then if you want to count Matthew Slater, the special teamer. Devin Lucien, KJ May, Tony Washington, these guys are on the outside looking at it. It would be a long shot. If anybody does it, it's Lucien, but he would need to have a serious push here the final couple weeks before the season. Austin Carr is the one on the bubble. So it's him or they're just going to keep 5 receivers at this point, I think. What bodes well for Carr is he can fill multiple roles. He can be a slot guy, but you can also send him down the field. And that's what Mitchell could do. So if Malcolm Mitchell can't start the season, it's going to really help them to have Austin Carr on the roster. The question is, where does that roster spot come from? They normally carry 5 receivers, and then you add Slater, that makes it 6. Are they going to carry 7? Where does that roster spot come from? Is it Jacoby Brissett? Is it Dion Lewis? One of these unexpected cuts, perhaps. So that's what's stopping Austin Carr right now. I think he's done enough to earn a roster spot. The question is roster composition. Is somebody else going to prove at a certain position that Belichick doesn't need to keep the numbers there that he needed to? Look, they're going to have to keep an extra defensive lineman now that Derek Rivers went down. And that's the guy who could play defensive line or linebacker. So that was the guy who was helping Austin Carr's cause. We'll see if they bring in a free agent to replace Rivers. They bring in a guy like a Dwight Freeney, or if Rob Ninkovich maybe comes back. So as for the wide receiver position right now, Jonah, we have a pretty good idea of what it's going to be. Austin Carr is the only question mark. Personally, I want him on the team. If it means carrying 2 quarterbacks, if it means starting Dion Lewis on the PUP, maybe one less safety, maybe if Jordan Richards doesn't make it in the last year of his contract, although he's looked good. It's going to be, again, he's given Belichick no reason to cut him. He has earned the roster. He has earned a roster spot on 31 NFL teams, has Austin Carr. But this is the defending Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. They're so deep at so many positions. They're going to cut guys that are going to sign on to other teams and be a factor. And Austin Carr, if he's cut, will be one of those guys. It's an unfortunate situation for those who want Austin Carr on the team, but that's the way it is. It reminds me of Crevon LeBlanc last year. If you ever listen to me talk about the Patriots, you know how big of a Crevon LeBlanc fan I was. I still am. He gets cut. One of the final cuts ends up being a number 2 corner. One of the bright spots on a bad Chicago Bears team last year. He's going to play more this year as well, and that could be Austin Carr this year on the other side of the ball. So, good question by Jonah. Yeah, keep the receivers, keep an eye on the receivers tonight. Keep an eye on Austin Carr. Devin Lucien, too. He's not totally out yet. He has to pass Carr first, which I think would be tough for him to do given the way Carr played 2 weeks ago. But he can return kicks, which is big for this team. And that's going to take us to our next question in a second. He's not totally out of the picture yet, but for me, he's on the outside looking in. I think he finds himself off the 53-man roster. And since we're talking about wide receivers, Peter online wanted me to talk about how Chris Hogan's going to get over 1,500 yards this season. Peter, I don't know if you took Chris Hogan high in fantasy or not. That might be a bit much. Yeah, you spelled Brandon Cooks wrong. He'll be good. Hogan will be good, but I think 1,500 might be a stretch there. Nice try, Peter. Again, this is the Patriots pregame show for CLNS Media. My name is Alex Barth. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions for us for next week, get at us on Twitter at CLNS Media, at Patriot Beat. You can find me at TheRealAlexB. I'm more than happy to talk about anything. We got a couple more questions I want to get to here before we wrap this up, bringing you up to the Patriots and the Lions preseason game 3. Boy, it's getting kind of old now, preseason. You want it so bad, like the week before the first game. And then you sit down and you're like, oh, well, this isn't football. This isn't what I wanted. Madden came out yesterday. That helped. I don't know if anybody's played it yet. I went out. I got it last night. I already beat long shot mode. That was kind of cool. Devin Wade, total Belichick guy. You know, if he can get his head straight, total Belichick guy. Probably Carter Cruz too. Definitely Carter Cruz now that I think about it. But, after that, it's kind of the same game as last year. So I'm feeling a little preseason with Madden, too. Let me know what you thought on Twitter at TheRealAlexB. Big Madden guy over here. But yeah, 2 weeks ago, I was down at the Hall yesterday. I was down at Patriots Place, decided to walk in the pro shop. And just, you know, see, it's time for more memories. The Super Bowl was nice. It's time for the next chapter, though. You guys see that banner Atlanta has up in their new stadium about setting the Super Bowl record for the most sacks? That might be worse than the Colts runner-up banner. Because the Colts did the best they could. Or finalists, better. Yes, they were the AFC finalists. Yes, they were. It's pathetic, but that's what they were. But saying you had 3 sacks to set a Super Bowl record when you also gave up the biggest comeback in Super Bowl history? That's just a bad look, man. They're hanging no banners in the stadium, because they're going to use video boards so they can interchange it for soccer and concerts or whatever. It also just might be because they have no banners. I'm actually going to be at that stadium in a couple of weeks. I'm looking forward to seeing it, but that's just a weak look. You know, we all know what happened. Don't bury the lead like that, please. Anyway, let's go to another online question here. This comes from Ben. Ben wants me to talk about the cornerback position and the return man job. So obviously these intersected at one spot, and that's Cyrus Jones. So thanks for the question, Ben. I was so in on Cyrus Jones. If you listen to the first show I did 2 weeks ago, I'm a big Cyrus Jones guy. Loved him in Alabama. Thought he was going to be a good NFL slot corner and an all-time returner because he was special at college. The best return man since Tyrann Mathieu college football had seen. And that's saying Tyrann Mathieu he's up there. You want to talk about all-time great return man, Tyrann Mathieu. But he had a rough first preseason game. He did. After a good camp, one of those deep balls wasn't his fault. He should have had safety help, but he was rough, and I swore Cyrus Jones off. I said, you know what? I'm the last one on the bandwagon. I'm done. I'm done with Cyrus Jones. And then he goes out and he has a pretty good game last week. And he talks to the media. He sounds a little pissed off. He sounds like he's got a little chip on his shoulder. Now, I don't want to jump back on the bandwagon because that's going to make me look weak. But he's not off this team yet. And I talked about last week, it'd be tough to cut him with the contract, but they still need a third corner. Nobody has emerged in that third corner spot. And I don't think Belichick wants to play Butler in the slot. He will if he has to. But Malcolm Butler is one of the best man-to-man corners in the league. You want him on the outside. We see every year what he does against Antonio Brown. You want him in that role. You don't want him in the slot, guarding Cole Beasley, guarding Eric Decker, guarding any of those guys, guarding Emmanuel Sanders. No, you want him on the outside on Demaryius Thomas. That's how you want to use Malcolm Butler. And nobody stepped up. Justin Coleman hasn't been great. Jonathan Jones, still one of the fastest players on the team. I'd like to see him return kicks, but he hasn't done much. The undrafted rookies, they've been okay. They haven't really got any chances. DJ Killings hasn't played much at all. Kenny Moore's probably leader in the clubhouse right now, but he hasn't stood out. Nobody has stood out outside of Malcolm Butler, who frankly sucked last week. He's done enough that I'm willing to chalk it up to a bad game. It was a preseason game, whatever. I don't think that's who Malcolm Butler is. And the 1 and 2 corners to start the season will be Butler and Gilmore. Regardless of their performance in that game, regardless of their performance the rest of the preseason, if those two are healthy, they're your starting corners. But somebody's got to step up. And if Cyrus Jones has this chip on his shoulder and you know he can play special teams, let's go, Cy. Get going. Here's your chance. Get back in the good graces. Go out and earn it. Okay? You still have some people, myself included, willing to say, at a bad rookie year, lights were too bright, he couldn't handle it. But you played college football at Alabama, high-profile high school football, this guy should be able to grow to the moment. And that's what's frustrating about him, is he hasn't, but I still think he can. I don't know if he will, but the potential is there. To me, that should be your third corner. If everything worked out ideally, that's your third corner going into the season. And I know I haven't mentioned Eric Rowe, but he's not playing in the slot. He's not. He's going to be used to spell Butler and Gilmore, keep them fresh, and then if you have to move Butler in the slot, Rowe will play on the outside. But Cyrus Jones needs to step up here. And the same goes to the return game. You're not going to have Amendola return kicks because he's too fragile. You could have Dion Lewis if you don't have him in as much of a running back role. But if you do need to rely on him to carry the ball, and we know he's fragile too, it seems like kick returners are always fragile. Who's your guy? I don't want to see Patrick Chung back there again. I don't want to see Matthew Slater back there. You know, come on, Cyrus, step up. Fill your role, do your job. This is why he was drafted. Talk about a black hole in the draft. Back-to-back picks last year. Cyrus Jones and Roberto Aguayo. Second round kicker, and you know, in theory, it wasn't a bad pick. He never missed from inside 35 yards, which means in theory he'd never miss an extra point in the NFL. But I don't know what happened. He was terrible last year. Kicker should be very easy to transfer over. I don't know what the hell happened to him. Then again, Gostowski hasn't been much better. So I think I saw Aguayo signed, but let's keep an eye on Gostowski tonight too. I wrote a piece for Couch Guys Sports last week comparing the 2007 preseason to 2017 preseason. Gostowski had a rough rookie year in 06. People forget that. He had a terrible preseason in 2007. And then he went on this incredible stretch of making 90% of his kicks and all his extra points. So maybe he exercises the demons. He shouldn't miss tonight. You know, if they try 60-yard or whatever. Anything 54 and in, he should not miss. It's indoors. If he starts shanking balls tonight, I'm going to be really worried about him. Again, this is the CLNS Patriots pregame show. I am Alex Barth. Thank you for tuning in. We're getting you ready for the Patriots and the Lions tonight in Detroit. Preseason game week 3. We're 2 weeks away from regular season football. 2 weeks away. And it doesn't feel like it this year. Because if you didn't notice, they tweaked the rules a little bit. And it hit me the other day. I'm like, shouldn't we be trimming the roster down? Shouldn't some guys be getting cut? This is normally when it starts happening. But the NFL, there's no more 75-man cut. You used to go 90 to 75 to your regular season roster. Now it's just 90 down to 56. And that's after the 4th preseason game. So these games are going to be new, 3 and 4. You used to have to play more guys that mattered because you didn't have as many guys on your roster. Now it's a full 90 all 4 preseason games. This is where Belichick used to cash in, was to go sign the guys that got cut elsewhere, bring them in, use them to fill holes. I'm sure he'd be looking at defensive linemen to get cut right about now, given what's going on with Rivers and Ninkovich retiring. But that's not a factor this year, and it's going to be interesting to see how teams handle it. Do you play more of your starter? Do you keep playing your stars as much, even though you have more guys on the roster because you want them to get reps? Or is the health more of a factor now you have all these extra bodies to play? Is it going to make teams more hesitant to cut guys during the preseason? Even though you have this 90-man roster, you'll bring guys in and out sometimes as need shift position to position. It's normally, the 89th, 90th guy on the roster. It's not big names. It's nobody you're going to know. But this happens constantly on a daily basis. And so far, Belichick has stuck with his 90-man for the most part. I'd assume if Rivers isn't on IR, they'll put him on IR. They normally won't do that till after the surgery, and then somebody else will come in. But Belichick is really stuck with his 90-man roster, and he does have needs. So it'll be interesting to see if he cuts early to try to get a jump start. I still think Dwight Freeney's in play for them. I think he is. I think there's a better chance of Freeney than Ninkovich coming back. He just seemed done. He seemed at peace with football. At least playing. He'd be a great coach. But he seemed to have made his peace with the game on the field. But Dwight Freeney was still good last year. And you only need him to play about 30 snaps. And you only need him to play on third downs. I don't know. I still think, let me know what you think. We'll talk more about Dwight Freeney next week. Let me know what you think. On Twitter, @TheRealAlexB, at CLNS Media as well. One question we didn't get to, that's from Evan. Evan, I'm going to answer your question next week because it relates more to next week's game than this week's game. But thank you to Becca, Jonah, Peter, Ben, and Evan for all their questions. All right. It's about an hour until game time, at least when we're recording this. Depends on when you listen to it. But hope we got you all set. If you need anything more, you can visit clnsmedia.com. Find us on Twitter @CLNSmedia. Make sure to come back for the post-game show as well after the game. Until then, I am Alex Barth. This has been the New England Patriots pregame show on CLNS Media. Thanks everybody for listening, and enjoy the game.